junkies, welcome back to Twin Flicks, where we're here celebrating the magic movies and physical media with you. And welcome back to our final installment of our Clint Eastwood 4K UHD versus Blu-ray comparison trilogy series. We previously did Dirty Harry and Outlaw Josie Wells, and we compare it to the previously released Blu-rays. If you guys haven't checked that out, definitely go check those out, especially Outlaw Josie Wells, because there is a big color difference here compared to the Blu-ray. It's really interesting to take a look at. So go check those out if you haven't already. But today we are going to take a look at Clint Eastwood's Pale Rider, which is also known as the unofficial remake of High Plains Drifter. It's been long reported that Eastwood was never fully happy with the end results of the High Plains Drifter and always wanted to remake the film. In 1984, he had his chance with Pale Rider. Again, according to Clint Eastwood, this is an unofficial remake of High Plains Drifter. So Pale Rider blasts his way into our homes with a fresh 8K scan from the original 35mm negative, forming a 4K DI with HDR10 grading, no Dolby Vision on this one, and a new Dolby Atmos mix, and preserving the original theatrical ratio of 2.39 to 1. The restoration work was handled and completed by Warner Brothers Motion Picture Imaging. And this 4K disc also contains two different featurettes, one about the cinematography and the other just behind the scenes making of featurette. And then it also includes three different documentaries. One of them I especially loved. It was definitely down my alley, and it was titled Eastwood Directing the Untold Story. It goes in about his choice in directing films and about directing Pale Rider. And if you're into filmmaking on any kind of level, you definitely want to check them out. Alright, so let's go back in time into the Old West of Clint Eastwood as the Pale Rider and take a closer look at this 4K UHD compared to the previously 2010 Blu-ray. The Blu-ray, honestly, at first glance, may look brighter and more vibrant than the 4K. And you may think, well, obviously, the Blu-ray is a clear winner here. However, brighter and more vibrant doesn't always mean better and doesn't always match the tone of the film. But one of the biggest areas I noticed on the Blu-ray was how blown out the highlights and whites are. Even down to light shining off of faces and leaves on trees and even sparkling off of water, along with the skylines, the snow, and even light coming in from windows in the background. And also just the daylight scenes look overly exposed. And this is the first area that I really noticed was corrected and a big improvement with this 8K scan and the HDR10 grading. Highlights and white levels are now accurately displayed here, looking balanced out and slightly dimmer with perfect exposure, which again marks a major improvement with this 4K. As for the overall color palette, the colors on the Blu-ray do run a little hot. And I also noticed some color bleeding and also some inaccurate colors where there was a slight blue hue in the snow. Now granted, the 4K image does look slightly darker and more dreary, but for a good reason. The color palette for this film was used this way to match the atmosphere of the Sierras in the fall. The Blu-ray instead looks like it's in the spring or even in the summer with how bright and hot the colors are, which is not how the film was intended to look. Now, based off the original source material and from Clint Eastwood and Bruce Sturges' color design, the color grading is much more faithful and as close as possible to the film's theatrical appearance and also looking much more natural. The use of HDR10 does open up the color gamut wider, but is also used just enough, enhancing what's already there with a very natural looking color palette. Primaries look healthy and also cleaner than the Blu-ray, with much more nuances within the color ranges, the different shades and tones that carry some really nice pop to it. The saturation and contrast levels are perfectly balanced here, while on the Blu-ray the contrast was boosted way too high, killing a lot of the moody shadows and visual fall atmosphere, while also flattening the image. Now the contrast is used just right, with daylight scenes looking more naturally lit, and darker lit scenes, especially with light sources, look much better and natural now. And we no longer have that flatness look to the image. The saturation is used just enough to give more life into the image, while also keeping the colors looking nicely balanced without ever pushing too hot or looking artificially added. This also helps with skin tones looking healthy and more natural than the Blu-ray, The black levels here on this 4K are outstanding, with deeper, inky, truer looking blacks, even pitch black I noticed in some areas, and rich, strong shadow details and shading. Now with these better resolved black levels, the same that we saw in the Outlaw Josie Wells, we see here in Pale Rider, where Eastwood is covered in shadows and his face is set off strongly against the dark interiors and corners, while also still remaining shadowy when he's backlit outdoors. The black levels now look like how they should, with excellent visibility even in the darkest areas of the frame. Now as far as the image quality, the Blu-ray wasn't a terrible disc, but it definitely hasn't aged well either. This new 8K scan and 4K UHD disc easily leaves the Blu-ray in the dust. And this also really helps with something else that I noticed on the Blu-ray, and that is during the initial raid scene on the mining camp during the opening credits. I noticed there was this weird strobing effect that was added into the image for the Blu-ray. It looked very odd. The 8K scan has now fixed this, where the opening no longer has that odd strobing effect that wasn't supposed to be there and looks much cleaner now. The 4K image for Pale Rider is for the most part sharp and clear, aside from some softness that's just inherited from the source material. So no, it's not an issue with the transfer. Details and textures look very strong, revealing much more intricate details of the vast landscapes and vistas, to all the period set pieces and period costume design, and also close-ups with facial textures that look perfectly resolved here, and revealing pores of facial hair, along with every bead of sweat on faces and drenched clothes. Also weaponry such as handguns, rifles, carry some really nice sheen to them. And now the reference point here between the 4K and the Blu-ray is that the 4K also has more depth and three-dimensionality within the image, along with some really nice sense of spaciousness now, giving an outstanding lifelike imagery. Unlike the Blu-ray that really lacked in this department. Again, as we talked about earlier, it looked very flat and lifeless. Now Pale Rider springs to life with this 4K UHD and 8K scan. This 8K scan 4K UHD presentation now richly showcases the production design, the stunning cinematography, filling the 239:1 frame, giving Pale Rider a much truer cinematic experience like I've never seen it before on home video. The bitrate ranges between the high 60s and I saw it top out in the low 90s Mbps and is on a 100 gigabyte disc. Now the film grain is intact, but I did notice some generational loss that's just to be expected here. And also I noticed, just as with Dirty Harry and Outlaw Josie Wells, there is also some slight grain management used with Pale Rider. And this was just to help the rougher areas. But the image never looks waxy or scrubbed down. We definitely don't have a Terminator 2 or True Lies situation here on our hands. Instead, we have a finer, better resolved, and tighter looking natural 35mm grain field with a nice filmic appearance. Alright, now let's dive into the audio presentation of Pale Rider, and just as with Dirty Harry and the Outlaw Josie Wells, Pale Rider also comes to us with a new Dolby Atmos mix that was created by Warner Brothers post-production and sourced from the best available archival sound elements and the original multi-track music recordings. This disc also includes the original stereo mix as well. The Atmos mix is very active. There are some added in sound effects to enhance the sound, but it's not distracting, and instead the new effects are very well blended in with the original mix. This Atmos mix is much better handled here than the Blu-ray 5.1 mix. From ambient sounds in the surrounds and height channels to gunplay with the shootouts. But I did notice there are a number of moments where it does still feel very front-end heavy, but when the action kicks in, the audio goes from the front channels and bleeds nicely into the surrounds and even in the height channels. And the LFE is active as well, with some nice bass rumbles and thunders from explosions. Carries some really nice heft and weight to it. Dialogue is rendered clear and clean. This is a very nice Dolby Atmos mix. And honestly, all three Clint Eastwood movies on 4K UHD are worth upgrading from your Blu-ray, and each one are demo-worthy discs. But as far as which one do I think is the best transfer, I have to say Outlaw Josie Wells, I think, is probably the best transfer out of them all. And then I would have to say Dirty Harry and then Pale Rider. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comments section when you look at the differences here between the two formats, the 4K UHD and the Blu-ray of Pale Rider, which do you like better? Or do you see any difference at all? Head over to the comment section and let me know. And as always, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me for a few minutes here as we go through these 4K versus Blu-ray comparisons. As always, keep physical media alive, and we'll see you next time with our 4K versus Blu-ray comparison.
Twin Flicks presents 4K versus Blu-ray comparison.